All right, we're going to get started on time. So we have maximum game time tonight, and maximum time for Dave to do his thing too. Our keynote speaker really needs no introduction, to be honest with you. Well known to all of us. Kind of really one of the leading content creators in the sports game space with his YouTube and his podcasts. Now closing on 300 episodes of your podcast.
Yeah, up over 270.
Up over 270 now. What's I think most interesting to me is that Dave started his game experience as a hobby gamer and discovered sports games later. Many of us in this room started out, as kids playing these sports games, and now we're still playing them 30, 40, 50 years later. But Dave kind of came to the party a little bit late, so he's an interesting perspective on the whole thing that I think you'll enjoy listening to. We get to hear him talk about it, and let's not delay any longer. So please welcome from the Digital to Dice podcast, Dave Gardner.
Thank you. And thanks, Keith, for having me. As you said, my name is Dave Gardner. I do a podcast called Digital to Dice, in which we largely talk about tabletop sports gaming. I also have a YouTube channel called Dave Gardner Videos, and I get to show and play those games that we talk about on the podcast. One of the things I like about doing the show is I get to talk to so many people, and I get to hear their gaming journey. And when you think about it, how did you all get here today? It started with one step, with one game, with one roll of the dice, and now it brought you all here. So what I thought I would do today is talk about my gaming journey and how I got here. So my journey starts in the early 70s, playing board games. Parcheesi, Monopoly, Chutes and Ladders was a good one, you remember that? I had never heard of Strat, or APA, Status Pro, and any of the games back then that were sports related, I'd never heard of. And so they were largely out of sight, out of mind, which is weird because I played sports, and I bought the magazines, I watched them on TV, I had Baseball Digest, Hockey News. I never heard of any of these games. No one I knew played them either. So we just did our board games. And that went up until about 1978, and we got the Atari 2600. How many have heard of the Atari 2600? Okay. That changed everything. That started 40 years of video gaming for me, that system. Now I look back at the Atari 2600 and we laugh about how bad the games were and how bad the graphics were, but at the time, right, that was big. In 1978, it was hip and cool to be playing the Atari 2600. Well, then again, in 1978, it was hip and cool to be a Cowboys fan, right? Sorry. So that kicked off 40 years of video games. So the other thing is, when I think about these games and why I never heard of them, it's like you think about how did people in the 70s get their games out to people? I mean, nowadays, you create a game, you get a YouTube channel, a website, an email, you put it on social media, and within a couple of days, you get thousands of eyeballs looking at your game. In the 70s, you couldn't do that. So I give all those companies credit for getting in the hands of anybody back then. If you think about that too, it wasn't until dial-up internet of the mid-90s, right, that Michael Canistrari got his 1 millionth OnlyFans subscriber. Right, Michael? Really, check out his OnlyFans. You won't be disappointed.
I got a free t-shirt for that.
So after the Atari, I went into the Intellivision, and then you had the Nintendo with Blades of Steel, and was it Tecmo Bowl, I think was the big one on that, right? And then the Sega Genesis with NHL 94. Still one of my favorite games to this day. And a funny story about that is in the early 90s when that came out, I was playing in heavy metal bands, okay? And I ended up going to somebody's house to talk about joining their band. And we talked and did our thing about music, and it went really well. And just before I left, I looked on the floor and says, "Oh, you got Sega hockey." And they're like, "Yeah." I says, "Want to play a game?" He's like, "Sure." So we went off and played a game. I don't know if it was NHL 94. I think it was the first one, NHL 92 or whatever it was. And we played a game and I beat him. Beat him pretty good. Good, I beat him. And he goes, "Well, now we're going to play it my way." What do you mean your way? He turned off all the rules. There were no icing, no offside, no penalties. It was rock'em sock'em hockey, and I never played like that. So he's up by a goal late in the game, and I pull the goalie, and with 30 seconds left, I took a shot and I tied the game. And I was like, yeah, tied the game, woo, this and that, right? And he was all mad. He lost, I tied. And so I went home, and no, I never heard from them again. I mean, we could have been the next Guns N' Roses. And yeah, Sailor hockey right there. So after that, I got the PlayStation and the Xbox, and I think we went all the way up to the PlayStation 4 is where it kind of ended. Again, 40 years of video games. Now, during that time, I hooked up with people from California, and we were doing a weekly video game podcast. And I did that from 2009 to 2019, 10 years. And during this time that we were doing the podcast, we would go to this event in Boston called PAX East. And it was a gaming convention, you might have heard of it, largely geared towards video games at the time. And so they would come in from the West Coast, and we'd hang out for the weekend, and we'd go to PAX and do our thing in Boston. And there was one year, I don't remember what it was, I think it was 2014, 2015, and I'm at the event. We had our media badges because we were there for the podcast and talk to people, interview them, and report back on the show. And it was elbow to elbow. This place was packed with people. And I'm shuffling along, and somehow I ended up in the board game section, okay? And I go, well, there's no TVs. There's no controllers. Get me out of here, right? But I couldn't move because I'm stuck with people. So I'm trying to get through as best I can. And I ended up stopping, and I looked down to my left, and there was a table. And there was these people that had cards on the table. And they were playing a football game with cards. And I thought that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Honestly. Don't you know we have Madden? You know? Okay. So the people at the table started talking to me because I couldn't go anywhere. And they said, oh, you want to talk to us about our game? I said, no, I'm here for video games. And so they said, well, we have a PC game. I said, okay, that's closer. And so they handed me a card. They said, go to our Facebook page, and you can download last year's game for free and try them out. I said, okay, fine. So I went about the conference, and I got home, and I downloaded the games and played it. And those games were Football Mogul and Baseball Mogul. Okay?
I know somebody.
And the people had come up from Connecticut to Boston to show off their stuff, and the person I talked to was Clay Dresslock. Little did I know, our paths would cross many years later. So I played the Football Mogul, and it wasn't my thing. It wasn't Madden. It's not what I was into, so no, put it away. So fast forward now a few years, 2018, and the new Madden comes out. And they had a tutorial, and you needed to convert a 2-point conversion with a run. So you get the handoff, and you needed to spin, and then get in the end zone. Well, I spun, and I spun, and I spun, and I never got in the end zone. I failed the tutorial. Then the basketball game come out, and I went to the tutorial, and there was 14 ways to take a jump shot. Push this button, push up here, step on that, 1 foot in the air, squint one eye, and I couldn't do that either. And then Tomb Raider came. I used to love Tomb Raider, the games. And the opening scene of this video game is you're going up a mountain with snow, and I think the snow gave way, and you had to run and jump over this ravine, and you took your axe and you had to slam it into the ice wall and then climb up to continue the adventure. Well, I jumped 15 to 20 times, and 15 to 20 times I fell to my death. And I went on YouTube, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I watched the people playing this game, and all they did is hit the button, just like I was doing, except they made it, and I didn't. Eventually, I did get across and finish the game, but I was pretty sour at this point. And so I remember going on the show and telling the co-hosts, and the woman on the show says, Dave, we're both over 50 years old. So we're not the target demographic anymore. And when she explained to me what that meant, I agreed with her. I said, you're right, we're in our 50s. They're not making games for us anymore. So that was the running joke on the show, that Dave couldn't play video games. That was a running joke until it just wasn't funny anymore. And the last straw came when the NHL came out that year. And you could play historic players. And I was like, I am gonna take Tony Esposito, put him on my team, and I'm gonna have a great time. Well, that's not how it worked. You could play those players, but they would appear randomly in different game modes. So I never got to play Tony Esposito, so I spent 60 or 80 bucks on this game that I will never play. And so I was pretty down on video games at this point in the fall of 2018. So I pulled out Football Mobile again, and I gave it a try. And this time it worked. And I said, this is great. I just click a button, I don't have to hit 10 buttons. I don't have to race, I don't have to time anything, I could just pick my play. That was fantastic. And then I remember I could play 1976, one of my favorite years as a kid growing up. I could never play 1976 anything with video games. And so now I'm playing 1976. And I think you could even make trades. Could you make trades in that game?
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember one of the first things that I traded Steve Grogan and Ken Stabler. How would they do on each other's team? And I was just having so much fun with this. So I says, what else is there? And so that's when I found Action PC Football. And I couldn't start the game. I didn't know how to begin the game. This was all new. So I went on YouTube and I found this dapper young man playing Action PC Football, and he helped me learn how to play the game. And every time we'd play, I would go on and talk to him, and we developed a friendship, and we were getting pretty close. And then there was one day, I think it was October or November of 2018, I was in bed with gout. Anybody ever had gout? Oh, yeah. There was no moving. I stayed in bed and didn't move. And so I had my phone, and he was live playing Action PC Football, and I watched the whole thing, and we chatted the whole day, and we really became tight after that. Well, this is Ron, by the way. Yeah, yes, this is Ron. And so we just kind of hit it off, and I ended up sponsoring his channel for a little while, and then he did some hockey videos with me for my hockey league, and everything we did just clicked. Everything we did just clicked. And so he's walking me through these games, and then he starts showing me the other Action PC games. And I believe it was January of 2019 that things really kicked off. I dusted off my YouTube channel, changed the oil, changed the spark plugs, and I'm streaming games now. It was largely Action PC Hockey, and I think Out of the Park Baseball was the other one I was streaming. And it was very similar to streaming video games, so I was like, okay, I can do this. And started to develop a little bit of following on my YouTube channel. And then in the spring of 2019, he goes, Dave, why don't you try cards and dice? What's cards and dice, Ron? Well, it's a game, you roll dice and look at cards. Okay, I'm open to it now. Let's check it out. So he said, you like hockey. Why don't you try shootout hockey? So I got the PDF, and I went down to Staples, and I printed it out one of the seasons, and I went home, and he had to walk me through it, because again, dice was brand new to me. I hadn't rolled dice since Yahtzee in the 70s. I don't even roll dice at the casino, you know. But anyway, so he walked me through it. I go, wow, this is fun. This is really fun. So I ordered another season. I go down to Staples, and I print it out, and I come home, and I play that season. Then I got another season, went down to Staples, printed that up, played that one. And then I got another season, and another season, and another season, and that's where the addiction began. To a point where I sent him a message one day that says, guess where I am? Are you at Staples? Mm-hmm. Did you buy another season? Mm-hmm. And so I was playing shootout hockey and having a good time. And then I stumbled on the Downey games, and more of the quicker play stuff. And again, I didn't know rolls from 11 to 66. I hadn't done this before, but he's like, yeah, try that. So I got a couple Downey games. I was really, really struggling. So I go on YouTube, and I look for some people that were playing these games. And the first guy I found was a guy named Dave Dorr. And he was playing shootout as well as some of the Downey games. And he was doing videos on them. And it was just really fun. Dave Dorr's channel was really fun. And I think he's since taken down his channel. It's 2 hacks. I really enjoyed it. But he was one of the first guys I saw that was really helping me do the cards and dice stuff. And then there was this guy named Al Wilson.
So much love.
And so when you watch an Al Wilson video, when you were done, you better know how to play the game. Al's stuff, again, as someone who was learning, it was so clean and concise and right to the point, and he really helped me learn a lot about cards and dice, so Al, thank you so much, it was really good. Then there's this other guy named P-Jet, who haunts me to this day, and he did a lot of shootout videos that were very helpful, you know. He still thinks he's a bigger California Seals fan than me. I just go along with it because it's easier, you know, but he did some stuff too. And then there was this other guy that was, he'd always dress up. If he did baseball, he was in a complete baseball outfit. Football, all football. He did a golf game one time. He got all dressed up, and he reminded me of Moe and the Three Stooges. I'm just glad when he did wrestling, he didn't put on the tights. But, yes, Steve Tower. So I started learning these cards and dice games, you know, with help from all these people and Ron and the whole bit. And I started playing more and more of them. And then I got ambitious, and I said, let me see if I can do some videos. Because I was having so much fun, even with the simple final score games. This was all new for me, and this was so much fun. And so I got ambitious, and I started to do my own videos with the cards and dice stuff. And I found it was way more difficult than doing the video games or the PC games, let me tell you. But I stuck with it, and I was just showing off the joy I was having learning these games. Every new game I found, there was some joy in. Playing these games, I was like, man, I want to share this with people because I am enjoying this so much. And so eventually, I got a little bit better, a lot of trial and error, a lot of error, but I did get a little bit better at it. And anybody that's ever done videos, you know, your first few videos are just cringy. You just, oh man, I think I deleted them, they were so bad. But eventually, I got a little bit better, I stuck with it and plowed through. And that continues to this day. Every time I find a new game or go back and play a different game, I just want to share that, you know, with people, and I do that with my YouTube channel. And right now, I believe my YouTube channel has over 2,400 videos on it. This is what it has right now. So that's how the YouTube channel started. It started with PC games and went into the cards and dice games. So that brings us to the summer of 2019. And in that summer, I says, I'm not playing video games anymore, like at all. So I talked to the people on the video game podcast, and I says, doesn't make much sense for me to come on and talk about Downey's Final Score football on a video game podcast. So I said, I'm gonna step down for a while because I'm just not doing it. At the same time, I said, 40 years of video games is out the window. And I wanted to capture the moment. I wanted to kind of, you know, catalog what was going on in my life. And I said, I'm gonna do a series about this journey from video games to dice games. And so I ended up calling this video diary Digital to Dice. And so I did a couple of videos, and I found that videos just took forever. And I was retaking and recutting and retaking, and it wasn't working out. But I put the first two videos up, and the response was pretty good. It was supposed to be from me, and I was just gonna make it private, because I wanted to see in 6 months, where was I? In a year, where was I? Am I still playing cards and dice, or was I just mad at video games, and now we're back together, you know, we're a happy couple again. So I wanted to see, I wanted to look back myself. But I put it out there in the public, and people were like, that was, okay, that's an interesting story. But then I called Ron one day, and I said, Ron, the video thing it's just not working out. It is way too much work, and I'm not getting nearly as much content as I want to. I think I'm gonna turn it into a podcast. I says, audio is much easier to work with, and I can talk about this journey and share all this, you know, the games and the joy I'm having on a podcast. So what do you think? He goes, frankly, I don't know. He goes, I don't know if the community would want to listen to a podcast. He goes, I just don't know. And he goes, but well, we won't know unless you do it. So he says, I'll help you get it started, but he goes, I don't want to be part of a weekly show. It's a big commitment, and I just don't want that commitment. So he goes, but I'll do a few shows, and we'll get you off and running. So I said, okay. So well, little did he know that that's going to be 6 years and 260 episodes. But so we started the show, and we talked about, you know, what we want to do. He says, I want timeless shows. I want shows that people can listen to in 6 months, or a year, 2 years, and still get some value from it, that it's not going to be stuck with, you know, what's going on today. And largely we did that. And we still get people that email us and say, hey, I found your show, and I'm going back to episode 1, and I'm going to listen to them all. And we get that all the time. It's like, well, it's a good thing we kind of did the timeless episode thing. I said I wanted to have guests. I says, I know this is about me and my journey, but I said, I want to talk to people that are playing these games. And let's get them on the show and talk to them. And so we agreed on that. In fact, we got one guy that comes on the show every 100 episodes, whether we want him to or not. What do you do, Steve?
We make up a topic, right?
If I can't get Bailey Zappi, I'm gonna get you, okay?
Oh, I hear he's available.
So we started recording the show. We put out a couple episodes and told family and friends, and they listened to it. Okay, it was going okay. And then we did a couple more shows, and next thing you know, we get 5 listens, 10 listens. One week we had 50 people listen to the show. And I remember we got to 100 listens one time. I said, we're famous. Oh, they got 100 people listen to us. Ooh, we made it. We made it. Ron, high five, we made it. And then it kept growing from there. And quickly it turned from being about me and my journey to really being about the hobby and the community as a whole. And that's the direction we went, but the show just took on a life of its own. And that's where we continue today. It's really talking about the hobby and the community. And starting next month, I believe, July, we'll start year 7 of the Digital Dice podcast. So back to my gaming journey. So we got the podcast up and running, got the YouTube up and running. And Ron's like, well, you really should play some more of these games rather than just the Downey games and shootout. So he said, let's step it up. Let's try Stratomatic Hockey. So I ordered a used copy of Stratomatic off of eBay. And I actually took it up to his place, and I spent the weekend with him. We played Stratomatic and had lunch and whatever. And I was like, okay, this ain't too bad. I said, but let me do this. Let me buy a new copy from Strat and get a full season of something I'm going to want to play, because I forget what teams came with the game. So I'll have a new copy of the game. It's all brand new in a new season. So I did. I went home and I ordered Strat Hockey in the season. And then I remember waiting for that to arrive, because you get 6 teams printed of the classic seasons and the rest they emailed to you. So I get the email, and I printed out Hartford and Quebec. I said, I'm going to play Hartford and Quebec. So I got them on the table, and we're playing, and Hartford's leading 3-2, and it's the last flip of the card, and it's a breakaway. And who gets the breakaway for Quebec? Joe Sakic. I'm sure people in Colorado have heard of Joe Sakic. So Joe Sakic gets a breakaway to tie the game, last card of the game. And he's stopped by Peter Sidorkiewicz, the Hartford goalie. But the game's not over, he's still got a face-off, right? Still got a face-off. Take the face-off, Quebec wins the face-off. Comes back to the point, shot and a save, and a rebound. Who does the rebound go to? Guy Lafleur. Guy Lafleur played with Quebec at that point. I look at Guy Lafleur's card on a rebound. 1-16 is a goal. This is fantastic. And I roll my 20-sided dice, and I get 18. Game over, Hartford wins. And I remember stepping back from the table and saying, what just happened? I said, I just played a hockey game, and this is the most I felt about playing a hockey game in all my years of video game playing. And I know we have a lot of developers here in the room. I don't know how you guys do it. I don't want to know, but just keep doing it. Because I felt like I just watched a hockey game. And it was amazing. It was just amazing. And it was that game, that roll of the dice, that save on Guy Lafleur, that forever changed my gaming journey. So the video games are gone, and I was all in with the cards and dice. And I get it. I get it now. And I didn't get it. All those years I didn't get it. And I get it now. And it's still amazing to this day. And so that's what's fueling the podcast, is me discovering all these games, playing all these games. That's what's fueling the YouTube channel. And so that's how the podcast started. That's how the YouTube channel started. That's how I got here. And that's my gaming journey.
That is good stuff. Excellent stuff. So we got some time for some Q&A. If you got some specific questions you'd like to ask Dave, I'll just kind of hand the mic back to him, and we'll go. I don't know what time it is. We got till 8. Oh, we got about 30 minutes, as much as 30 minutes. So if you got something you want to ask Dave, please do so. Anybody out there? There we go.
When you were first starting out the podcast and you were getting like 1 to 5 views per episode, how did you keep going? Like, how did that, the feeling of only having like 5, I know it's only 5 people, and when you're starting out that feels like a lot, but do you ever feel demoralized or like feel like
So the question is, when we started the podcast, we only had 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 listens to the first few shows. How did we keep going? Well, we knew it was only 1 or 2 shows. And now if we were on show 100 and we had 5 listens, then yeah, we start rethinking things. But again, we were just starting out. And I was brand new to this. I was brand new to the community. Ron was still showing me how to use Delphi, okay? So we're posting on Delphi, hey, we got a new podcast. Great, you know? But we stuck with it, is what we did. We stuck with it. And that's the same thing with the YouTube channel. There's been so many times I wanted to shut that down because, you get negative feedback, but, you put yourself out there and that's what you're gonna get. But there's been times that we didn't want to do it anymore, but more people enjoyed it than did not. But the answer to your question, we stuck with it, and we believed what we were doing, and we just stayed with the format, and we were getting positive feedback, even from one person, and that was enough to keep it going.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jim, what kind of tech do you use to record the podcast?
What kind of tech? When I first started the show, I bought this mixing board. It was called the Rodecaster Pro. I think they now have the Rodecaster 2. And what it is, it's a mixing board that you can put 4 microphones in, and you can record right on that mixer. So you don't even need a computer. Okay, so that's what I use, and I bought I had a Shure SM7B, which is a very professional microphone, and then Ron got I think a Blue Yeti microphone. So that's one thing, we wanted to sound good. We didn't want to have headsets and sound like we're on a Zoom meeting. We had to sound good, and we insisted on that. So we waited a couple weeks for the Rodecaster Pro mixing board to come in and for me to learn how to use it, and right away we had really good audio quality. Is what we wanted, and that's what we got. And a lot of people actually commented on that. They says, wow, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but yours sounds good compared to other ones. So yeah, getting a good microphone and a good mixing board, or you can record right on the computer, but sounding good is very important.
And where did you get the music for your show?
The first bit of music is the one I'm using now, which is a demo tape from my band in 1991. Yeah, that's my band. So, shake me up, let's go! That's my band. Okay. And after a while, I ended up switching to a band called Metal Church, which is just a favorite band of mine from the 80s. And they put out a new album, and they had a song called By the Numbers. And I was like, well, that's kind of a neat tie-in to what I'm doing. And it was a driving beat with drums and guitar, and it kind of was energetic. And every time I played it, I got ready to do the show. And I asked the management if I could use it, and they said, yeah. And so we used that for a few years, and then
Maybe found out that you beat him in Sega and said.
That might have been it, yeah. But then I got a notification one day on my YouTube channel that says, hey, you're using some copyrighted stuff, so you can't monetize this anymore. And I'm like, well, no, but so I ended up going to some drum beat that I created, and finally I went back to my band's demo tape, and that's where we are now.
Cool. Thank you.
Tell them a little more about the hockey league day job and kind of how that relates to sports, and maybe piggybacking back and forth.
Oh yeah, I do play-by-play for junior hockey leagues, and I actually use some of these games during the summertime to practice my play-by-play. So when you tune in, whether I'm playing, whatever it is, Apple or Hockey Bones, or the best one is actually Inside the Crease, that PC game by Inside Sports. That's the one to me that feels most like hockey, because you have block shots, you have corner battles, and I can really practice my play-by-play. So there is a crossover there between the two, with the play-by-play and what I do on the podcast.
You have an arc to the show where in the beginning you weren't sure that you liked longer games. In fact, you were kind of contentious in the beginning with longer games. That has changed a lot over the years. How did that happen exactly?
I talk about it on the show once in a while how I feel that I've matured as a gamer. Is the best way to put it. because I was pretty specific on what I liked, and I would play something and not like it. In the beginning, though, I was playing a ton of games, because this was Christmas morning, and I'm tearing through presents, and that's what it was. And I would play a game, and in 2 minutes, if I couldn't figure it out, this game stinks. And that's kind of how it was. And play a longer game, I don't have 2 hours to play this game. I'm gonna go play this game that I can take 5 minutes to play, and I can play more of them. And that was my attitude, for a long time. And then as I played more games, and I realized, boy, the longer the game, the more satisfaction I'm getting out of it. And I'll play a game, and I'll take all night. I think I was watching one of the Stanley Cup Finals games, and it took me the whole Stanley Cup Final game to play a game of bank shot basketball. And I wasn't going fast, and I would stop and watch the game, then go get a drink, but I found that it didn't matter how long it took to play the game anymore. It really didn't. Go Clay.
You really, truly don't have any desire to design your own game or to tweak the rules when you're playing games? Well, I guess those are two separate questions. I think tweaking's in your wheelhouse.
Look at the time. I've been asked by enough people would I like to create my own game.
Yeah.
I would have no clue where to start,
Yeah.
honestly. In fact, when I was in bands, I didn't write the songs, I just added to what was built.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
a game like yours, I'll play it, or if I'm in the beta, I'll take what somebody has and I'll work with that and try to create something that I think is better, so to speak. So I don't think I could ever create anything, but what I do, even in the bands, I didn't really write the songs, but someone would come up with a melody and I would run with it, is what I would do. So that's kind of what I do is, I don't want to say I make the games better, that sounds kind of,
I think everyone who contributes, constructive, nicely written or spoken feedback definitely contributes to the design process. So yeah,
I think so.
you get credit for that.
Oh, thank you. And there's ways to do it. I play something and it's very rarely I say, this is terrible. I say, well, I like this, but I don't like that, or can we make this a bit better, can we clear this up a little bit, So I do better as a beta tester or as a soundboard than I do as a, let's start with pen and paper and create a game.
I just wondered, what's a game or games that you wish you could play more often?
I would say one of my favorite games is Apple Football. I don't know why that works for me, and when I'm done playing a game of Apple Football, I just feel like I just watched the football game, and I just am so satisfied with that. In fact, I was just telling my cousin over here, who's brand new to this stuff, he's in Colorado, he's come down to see me, and I was telling him the story at dinner tonight. One of the Apple Football games I played was the tuck rule game, okay? That kicked off the Patriot greatness, the unbelievable Tom Brady. So I'm playing that game in Apple Football, and Oakland's winning. They're up by 7, and it's 4th and goal at the 4 with about 13 seconds left. That's where Apple Football put me. And so I call a short pass for New England. And I roll the dice and I check Tom Brady's card, and it's a scramble. And I'm thinking, oh, this is it, he's scrambling. And I go to the scramble chart, and it's a fumble. And I'm like, well, so much for that. Brady's got a chance to win the game and he fumbles. But when I read the fumble result, it said 5 yards and a fumble, which means from the 4, touchdown. And that's how my tuck rule game went. And that was amazing, I thought. I thought it was amazing that it came down to a 4th and 3 with 13 seconds left or whatever it was, and Tom Brady scrambles 5 yards. I can picture him barely getting into the end zone before the ball came free. Now, just to be fair, Oakland won it in overtime with a field goal, but I thought that was I shouldn't have mentioned that. I got that one.
So unrealistic.
But I thought that was one of my more amazing cards and dice experiences.
Have you found the sweet spot for the length of time that your podcast should go, and your videos of your gameplay?
A sweet spot for the length of time for the podcast, I want to say 45 minutes to an hour, hour and 5 minutes I found is the sweet spot. Anything shorter, it really doesn't give us a chance to get across what we want to talk about. And anything longer than an hour, 10 hour and 15 minutes, it starts to get a little drawn out. And because I listen to a lot of podcasts too, and 45 minutes to an hour really is a sweet spot. As far as the videos go on YouTube, it depends what I'm doing. If I'm just kind of showing off a few things with unboxing, you can do 20 minutes to a half hour. But if you're playing a game, it's going to run into an hour or more. And if I really want to get crazy and I have all day to play a game of Apple football, let's say, it's going to be 2.5 or 3 hours. So it really all depends on the game for the YouTube channel.
Have you measured the engagement of your audience, how long it'll stay with you?
No one ever watches the whole thing. So yeah, anybody out there that's going to do some YouTubing and think people are going to sit and watch an entire game for an hour and a half, it doesn't happen. People drop in and drop out. Some people watch after the fact. And I watch people play too, and I don't stay for the whole thing. I'll drop in and drop out and the whole bit. So you just got to keep in mind that you're kind of doing this for yourself and to share it, and people are going to come in and out, and you can't get disappointed if you're looking, 10 people watched and they only watched for 5 or 10 minutes.
How far in advance do you plan out what you're going to talk about in a particular episode, and how much time do you spend preparing for what you're going to say versus just letting it flow?
That's a secret. That's a secret. No. So how do we get the show topic and preparation time? When Ron was on the show, we would talk every day, several times a day, and a lot of times it was about what we're going to talk about on the show. And so there was all week worth of prep. Now it's kind of, I'm talking with different people are on the show, so it's what's going on. And a lot of it was what's going on in the community, in the hobby. We'll get on Delphi and someone has an issue or something happening. Let's talk about that. Maybe something happens on my tabletop, like the Tom Brady thing. And let's talk about how exciting some of these finishes are. So a lot of the topics for the shows are based on you guys. What are you guys doing? What are you guys playing? What are you experiencing? What are some of the fun things? What are some of the non-fun things that are going on? And we talk about that because that's what you guys are doing. And I kind of look at the podcast as kind of like a town hall. You go to the town hall meetings to talk about what's going on in your town. And you really can't get tabletop sports talk on FM radio. You really need to go to a podcast to listen to that. And so that's why people come and listen to this. No pineapple pizza questions?
Right there. Now, you mentioned Ron, I assume you mean Ron Junket.
Yeah.
And I thought you said initially, when you first met up with him, he was helping you or showing you some tabletop dice and card games. Is he able to play like that? Or is it
No, he can't physically play the games, but he knows about them. And so he would explain them to me. And there are some, if there's a PDF available, like he plays season ticket football from Clay, because he can put the PDFs on his screen. He uses ball roller to roll the dice, and the Pro Football Helper to keep the stats. So he can play cards and dice, just not physically. So it has to be PDF, and so it all has to be electronic on the computer. But he's a smart guy, and he's played all that stuff in the past, so he was walking me through everything and helped me out that way. But no, he's not physically rolling the dice.
Yeah. The other question is, tell us a little more about your band experience. What instruments did you play? The same background or?
Yeah, I started playing guitar in, I think it was like junior high. And I hated music. I did. In 5th and 6th grade, you had to go sing in the choir. Or you could sit in the room and do homework. I chose to do homework. I never wanted to sing in that. I did. I never wanted to sing. And I get into junior high, and they made you take a music class. And 90% of the class was playing the acoustic guitar. And for some reason, I was able to play really well. And I started playing, and then I got my own guitar, and I played that. And I played, in bands when I was a teenager, playing guitar. And then I got in my early 20s, and I found that more bands needed bass players. And bass player was much easier than guitar. And so I started playing the bass. I was a pretty good bass player, I gotta say. And then after that, I was actually lead singer for a band, if you can believe it. I really was. And we just never went anywhere. I played a couple of club shows, you know, and I sang in front of people. And I gotta say that playing in bands did a few things, so, and I'm glad you brought it up, because using musical equipment and mixers and microphones and cords and wires really helped with the podcast and, you know, with me broadcasting, because it's a lot of the same stuff is setting up, you know, making sure you don't have feedback and speakers and microphones. And also being up on stage singing in front of a club full of people makes this a lot easier. You know, standing in front of people talking, which is very difficult at
Sing
times.
us a
But
few lines now.
oh, you don't want to hear me sing now. Yeah. Us here on the East Coast, we're all losing our voice out here, right, Steve? Yeah, it's a different climate out
What
here.
rhymes with History Maker Baseball?
I'm not sure.
Anybody else?
Tripping a football.
I play.
What's your favorite non-metal band, and why is it Rush?
Rush is my favorite band. I do. Rush is my favorite band. I gotta
Yes,
say.
all
I gotta
right.
say, I'm a big Rush. Well, their first 10 albums. After that, I saw them on the Grace Under Pressure tour in 1984. I think I saw them 5 times.
Nice.
All over the East Coast. Yeah. So I was a big Rush fan.
All right.
Big Rush fan. So. But anyway, all right. Well, again, thank you so much, and thanks for listening to the show.
Dave is also going to be part of our brown bag lunch thing tomorrow during the lunch break. We'll do an hour panel discussion with Steve's going to be on it and several others talking about social media and sports. Oh, Steve's got a few interesting things to say. But that'll be tomorrow during the lunch hour, and Kurt will be on it, and we'll have just a discussion specifically about social media and the sports game.